My name is Father Malachai, and I should not be alive. I have wrestled with silence. I have bled under its weight. But now I speak, not because I want to, but because I must. This is not a testimony. This is a vow being fulfilled. What I saw, what I heard, what I was shown. No man can carry and remain unchanged. I died. I crossed the veil. And he met me there. Jesus. Not the Jesus of paintings and poetry. The Jesus who knows. The Jesus who sees through bone. The Jesus whose presence unmakes every illusion. He called my name in the dark. Even now I tremble. My hands remember the stillness of death. My soul remembers the light. And the voice that shattered the silence I had built around my spirit. I am not here to entertain you. I am not here to prove anything. I am here because I made a sacred vow on the edge of eternity. If I returned, I would speak. You do not need to believe me. But if your soul starts to stir, if something ancient and buried begins to rise in you as I speak, then remember this. You were brought here to remember. The truth I carry is not soft. It will disturb you. It will strip you of borrowed comforts. It will pierce through what religion has wrapped in gold. But the truth must be told. I speak not for applause. I speak because time is thinning. Because the veil between worlds is trembling. Because what is coming cannot be outrun. He called my name in the dark, and I will not be silent. Not now. Not after what I saw. They warned me not to share this. They said it would be misunderstood. But I did not return from death to keep secrets. I returned to tell you what awaits. This message is not for the curious. It is for the called. For those whose dreams have been haunted, whose prayers have grown dry, whose hearts are breaking and don't know why. If you're still here, you were meant to be. Because the hour is late, and the fire is coming. The truth must be told. I was a reverend father for over 27 years. The cassock became my second skin, and the scent of incense soaked into my bones. I knew the rites by heart. I moved like a vessel, anointed, appointed, respected. The bells rang. The candles flickered. The wine was poured. The words were spoken. Mass at dawn. Confessions before dusk. Prayers whispered to empty pews beneath a stained-glass sky. I wore the cross around my neck, but somewhere along the way, I stopped carrying it in my chest. People saw holiness, but I was drifting. Inside, something sacred had gone quiet. The fire that once roared in me had become a flicker behind frosted glass. I remember sitting in my office, hands resting on my breviary, staring at nothing. Coffee growing cold beside unopened letters. My fingers turned pages, but my soul stayed still. I preached sermons I no longer felt. I blessed children with a smile carved out of duty. I absolved sins while ignoring the ache in my own heart. I told myself I was tired. But it wasn't fatigue, it was famine. A famine of truth. A silence had crept into my soul, slow and subtle like ivy. And in that silence, something began to move. I started dreaming again. But the dreams were different. Not nightmares. No, they were more terrible than that. They were true. A man standing in smoke, eyes like flame. A voice calling my name from a valley with no echo. An altar torn open. A chalice overturned. I'd awaken gasping for breath, clutching my chest, weeping without reason. Something was off. I felt it in my skin. In the dust of the chapel floor. In the way the candle flames bent when no wind stirred. In the way the crucifix on the wall seemed heavier than before. The storm was coming. And my soul knew it. He called my name in the dark. Again and again. A whisper just behind the veil of waking. But I didn't answer. I buried myself in routine. I told myself it would pass. That I needed sleep. That I was being dramatic. But heaven does not wait forever. And then, it happened. One morning, the light outside the chapel window looked different. Sharper. Quieter. The air was too still, as if even time was holding its breath. I remember walking toward the altar to prepare for Mass. The scripture lay open. The vessels were set. But my knees buckled before I reached the pulpit. A pain bloomed in my chest like fire beneath the ribs. My breath caught. My vision narrowed. The room tilted. Then, nothing. No sound. No breath. No weight. Only a silence deeper than silence. I remember falling and never hitting the ground. One moment, I was surrounded by wood and stone and vestments. The next, I was above them. I saw my body, slumped on the sanctuary floor, alone, so fragile, so small. I should have panicked, but I didn't, because in that moment I felt something I had not felt in years. Not the peace that we preach in homilies, but the kind that speaks without sound, the kind that fills you and empties you at once. I hovered, weightless, bodiless, and then I was moving, drawn upward, pulled not by force but by invitation. There was no tunnel, not yet, only a thinning of the air, the edges of the world beginning to bleed light. I felt time breaking, I felt memory dissolving, and I felt a presence waiting. He called my name in the dark, and now I was answering. I was leaving the world, not as punishment, but as a summons, and somewhere beyond the veil. He waited with eyes that had seen the beginning and would see the end, but I did not know that yet. All I knew was that I had died, and everything I thought I knew was about to burn away. He called my name in the dark, and I answered. The light did not come all at once. It crept in slowly, like dawn over a battlefield, soft at first like breath on the back of the neck, then brighter, sharper, holy. It wasn't sunlight. It wasn't the fluorescent hum of a hospital bulb. It was something else, a radiance without source, a light that sees, a light that remembers. I did not rise. I was lifted, effortless, silent, like a leaf caught in wind. My body remained below, curled like an emptied shell, cloaked in vestments, surrounded by stone and stillness. My lips no longer moved, but my soul was wide awake. I hovered just above it all, weightless, sightless, and yet I saw the paramedics arrive, breathless and afraid. Their hands moved with urgency, compressions, wires, pads, injections. They fought for what they thought was life. But my life had already slipped through their fingers. There was no fear, not in me, only a strange, sacred knowing, like something ancient inside me was finally exhaling. I watched them work on my chest, shouting numbers, calling codes. One of them cried. I wanted to touch his shoulder, to tell him it was all right, but there was no body left to move, no tongue left to speak, and still, I was more alive than I had ever been. He called my name in the dark, and I came when he called. Sounds began to distort. The voices below faded as if they belonged to another world. The beeping machines lost their rhythm. Then the silence came. Not emptiness, not absence, but a living silence. A silence that hummed, a silence that welcomed. I turned, though I had no form, and saw the walls begin to shimmer. Matter unraveling like a scroll burned at the edges. The veil between here and there was thinning. And then the sound. It wasn't music. It was remembrance. A sound that rang through bone though I had no bones left. A harmony not made of notes but of recognition. Every part of me said yes. Every part of me said, home. And the light. It opened. Not like a window. Not like a doorway. But like a wound in the fabric of this world. It pulsed. It breathed. And it called. Not with words but with a pull so ancient it made me weep. It was the call every soul has waited to hear. The sound behind all birth cries. The voice behind the thunder. It said, come. And I went. I did not walk. I belonged to it. I was being drawn like water into riverbeds carved before time. As I passed through the wound of light, I left behind everything, pain, memory, form, identity. And yet, paradoxically, I became more myself than I had ever been. He called my name in the dark, and I walked into the light. I do not know how long I floated. There was no time there. Only unfolding. Only revelation. I did not move forward so much as I was revealed layer by layer, like a soul being read. And the atmosphere. It was not air, it was intention. Every molecule pulsed with awareness. The light was alive. It did not simply shine, it watched, knew. And I was not alone. I began to feel other presences. Not beings with names or features, but essences, souls, ancient, familiar. Some felt like kin. Others like songs I had forgotten. No words were exchanged. And yet, everything was understood. One of them moved closer, not with footsteps but with memory. He did not speak, but I heard him in my being. You are being summoned. I wanted to ask why. I wanted to ask what I had done to deserve this. But the questions dissolved before they could form. Because even then, before I saw his face, I knew this wasn't about deserving. It was about truth. It was about returning. The world I had left felt thin now. fragile, faint, like a dream half remembered. And the closer I moved toward the center of that light, the more I began to feel something indescribable. Not love. No, more than love. Not peace. Deeper than peace. It was holiness. A holiness that burned without smoke. That weighed without crushing. That filled every corner of my being with awe. Not the awe of fear, but the awe of rightness. I did not see a throne. I did not see gates of pearl. I saw only presence. And I knew. He was near. He called my name in the dark. And now the dark was gone. And he was coming. I crossed into a place not marked by horizon or sky, not bound by gravity or time. A place older than language, deeper than memory. I crossed, and the veil did not tear, it welcomed. It curved back like hands opening, like a robe falling to the floor. The light became a tunnel, but not a tunnel in the way we know. It had no walls. It sang. Yes, it sang. Not in melody but in meaning. Every particle of light hummed with memory. It was a song that remembered me. As if every hidden part of me, every forgotten ache, every unsaid prayer, had been stored there waiting for my return. The light did not blind. It bathed. It washed over me like oil, like breath, like womb. And I floated forward, though nothing moved. I was not traveling. I was being revealed. Like something buried slowly rising to the surface. There was no fear. Only reverence. And a deep, vibrating stillness that felt like peace made visible. Time collapsed around me. I saw my childhood and old age folded into each other like hands in prayer. Moments blurred. Regrets lifted like mist. Grief turned translucent, and I could finally breathe beneath it. I felt him before I saw him. The presence. The one who had called me in the dark. But first, I saw them. They did not walk toward me. They simply were. Radiant souls shining with a light not their own, but borrowed like lanterns lit by the same flame. I knew them, not by name, by knowing, a deep cellular recognition. My mother, but not as I remembered her. Younger, fuller, alive in a way the world never gave her. Her eyes held me like lullabies, and then she was gone. Not lost but complete. Others passed by. A childhood friend who drowned before I ever understood what death was. A priest who once whispered grace into my shame. An old woman who had died during communion in my parish. And others, older than memory. Eyes like galaxies, robes like wind, voices like flame. Ancient. Not human, yet full of humanity. There was no speech, but every encounter pulsed with truth. I was being welcomed home. He called my name in the dark, and they heard it too. This realm was not an afterlife. It was the before. The place from which all things come and to which all truth returns. It was not floating in space. It was being held by love. Not love as sentiment. Not love as emotion. Love as substance. As fabric. As the unspoken syllable at the root of existence. It wrapped around me, through me. It filled the cracks in my being. It was not a thing I felt. It was the thing that felt me. Every part of me that had gone numb on earth. Ignited. He called my name in the dark, and now I was being renamed. I heard it, a voice, not loud, not thunderous, but absolute. It spoke a name I had never heard, and yet, I wept when I heard it, because it was mine, the name beneath my name, the name spoken over me before my body was ever formed, the name he gave me before breath, before shame, before robes and rituals. It rang through me. It broke me open and stitched me back together in a single instant. I fell. Though there was no ground, I bowed. Though I had no knees, I worshipped, not with words, but with yielding. Everything in me cried, "This is home," not in nostalgia, but in return. There was no church here, no altar, no choir, and yet, everything was holy. Everything was the altar. Light draped itself around thought. Love moved with the force of oceans but the touch of fingertips. And I had no more questions. Because truth was a place and I was inside it. He called my name in the dark, and here the dark was gone. But I had not yet seen him. I had felt his gravity. I had tasted his presence. But I had not yet stood before the one whose voice had broken through death. That moment was coming. And when it came, everything I ever believed, everything I ever feared, everything I ever preached, would be reduced to ash before his eyes. He called my name in the dark, and now, the light was drawing near. And then he came, not with trumpet, not with thunder, not with the trembling of stars or the shaking of the firmament. He came like breath, like a stillness so vast it emptied the soul of noise. He did not arrive. He revealed. He had always been there, hidden within the light, within the love, within the memory of everything I had ever longed for. He stepped forward, though there was no ground. He emerged from the heart of holiness itself. And suddenly, every particle of that realm turned to face him. And I knew, without introduction, without scripture, I knew, Jesus, not the Jesus of stained glass, not the Jesus framed in gold leaf and liturgy, not the gentle shepherd of children's books. This was the Jesus who walked in fire, the Jesus who carved galaxies with his breath, the Jesus before whom angels kneel in silence, the Jesus who remembers every tear ever wept in secret. He called my name in the dark, and now I stood in the light of his presence. He did not speak, yet I heard him. He did not move, yet I was drawn. He did not reach for me, yet I unraveled. His eyes, they did not look at me. They entered me. They passed through skin and memory and name. They searched out every corner of me I had tried to hide, and found nothing that surprised him. I expected judgment. What I received was truth. He saw my sermons, the ones I preached without faith. He saw the pride hidden behind humility. He saw every silent doubt, every rehearsed prayer, every time I smiled while dying inside. He saw it all, and he did not flinch. He did not accuse. He did not demand apology. He simply knew, and in his knowing, I broke. I fell, not because he commanded it, because holiness made it impossible to stand. It was like trying to hold your breath inside a hurricane of truth. I collapsed beneath the weight of my own soul, and wept, not for shame, but for love. For a love too vast, too wild, too honest to fake a response. He called my name in the dark, and in his gaze I saw why. In a single, eternal instant, my life unfolded, not as a timeline, but as a soul song, a weaving of choices and echoes, a tapestry of wounds and whispers. Every person I'd touched, every lie I'd told, every kindness I'd forgotten, every prayer I'd mumbled out of duty, was all there, laid bare. And yet, he did not turn away. I expected fire, but I found eyes full of tears. I expected fury, but found sorrow. He was not angry. He was wounded. Wounded by my forgetfulness, by how far I had drifted, by how little I believed in what I preached. He called my name in the dark, because I had stopped calling his. And then he spoke, not with lips, with being. The words entered me, burned through me, became part of me. You were brought here for a reason. That phrase did not echo in the air. It echoed in my bones. It rearranged me. I looked up, trembling. He stepped closer, and I felt my purpose ignite. He did not give me a title. He did not give me a platform. He gave me a burden, a sacred one. He said nothing more. But within that holy silence, I received a divine command. You must return and speak. I wanted to stay. I wanted to disappear into his radiance, to never feel the weight of skin or shame or silence again. But I had made a vow, and he had written his trust upon my soul. I had seen too much to stay silent. He turned, and I felt the realm begin to shift. The light began to dim, not from absence, but from invitation. I was being sent, back through the wound in the veil, back to the noise, back to the forgetting. But before I left, he looked at me one last time, and in his gaze he said everything. Return to the fire. Return to the truth. Return to me. He called my name in the dark, and now I carry his name into the shadows. I do not speak from authority. I speak from obedience, because I saw him, and I was sent. There are things I saw that I have not the language for. There are truths so old, so buried, that to speak them feels like opening a sealed tomb. But I must, because I was not just shown beauty. I was not just shown light. I was shown the wound beneath the altar, the crack behind the stained glass, the dust swept beneath centuries of incense. He called my name in the dark, so that I might see what darkness dares not utter. I was taken, not forward, not back, but beneath, into a depth beneath doctrine, a silence older than sound. I was shown what men in robes dared not remember, what books had footnoted, what theologians had wrapped in metaphor, because the truth was too costly, too inconvenient. I saw the lie, not a single lie, but a system of forgetting. A scaffolding built to hold power, not light. A network of sacred thefts disguised as tradition. The erasure of the original voice. He showed me how entire lineages of wisdom were buried, how sacred songs were silenced, how prophets were painted over, rewritten, renamed, so the world could forget who carried the flame first. They were not forgotten by heaven, only by earth. They were chosen, but they were feared, and so they were hidden. I saw it. Whole tribes whose connection to the divine was direct, unmediated, wild. Men and women who walked in visions, who touched heaven in their sleep, who carried oil in their blood and fire in their bones. I saw scrolls that had never been read, names never pronounced, tongues never translated, a whole archive of suppressed glory, and I understood. This isn't just about race, it's about restoration. Not just a restoring of people, but of order, of spiritual memory, of the original sound that echoed when the world was first spoken into being. He showed me the distortion, how truth had been edited, how holiness had been franchised, how miracles had been monetized. I saw men building platforms atop altars. I saw temples erected in the name of ego. I saw Bibles held like weapons, while the Lamb who wrote them stood outside knocking. I saw bishops bowing to emperors. I saw prophets for hire. I saw the sacred traded for influence. And still, in the shadows, there were remnants. A woman praying over her children in a tin-roofed home. A child fasting in silence while the world scrolled past. An old man weeping on a cracked floor, not for his own sins, but for the blindness of the church he loved. They were unknown, but they were seen. They were mocked, but they were marked. They were chosen. And the voice, his voice, spoke again. You were brought here to remember. I was not shown these things to condemn. I was shown so I could call back the memory, call back the fire, call back the sound of truth unfiltered. I saw the rising, a quiet, steady rising, from every nation, every tongue, a remnant awakening, not in megachurches, not on stages, but in kitchens, in deserts, in jail cells, in secret prayer closets soaked with tears. They remembered, and with remembering came pain, but also power, because the moment a soul remembers who it is, no chain forged by man can hold it. He called my name in the dark, and now I call yours. Return to the fire. The world will tell you it's gone, that miracles are myths, that the Spirit has retired, that glory is for scholars, that holiness is a branding strategy. But I have seen the flame. It burns where no one's looking. It waits for those willing to lose everything just to feel Him once. You were brought here to remember, not just to learn, not just to listen, to remember, because the remembrance is where the power begins. He called my name in the dark, and what He showed me changed everything. I'm not the same. You won't be either. And then He showed me what was coming, not with charts or calendars, but with weight. It pressed against my spirit like thunder clothed in silk. It wasn't just a vision, it was a knowing, a deep, ancestral echo that vibrated through the bones of the soul. The world was going to shake. I saw it, not like an earthquake, but like the breaking of a great mirror. Systems cracking, thrones crumbling, voices silenced by their own echoes. He called my name in the dark, so I could witness what the light would soon reveal. Floods where no water should be, fire swallowing cities, skies screaming with storms that bent the shape of the earth. But worse than that, hearts turning to stone. I saw men laughing while children starved. I saw justice sold for convenience. I saw truth dressed up as opinion and sold at market price. And I wept, because this shaking would not be resisted. It would come, and it would not ask permission. But in the ashes, after the tremble, after the storm, a flame began to rise, not from palaces, not from pulpits, from the forgotten. I saw children, barefoot with eyes full of fire. I saw the elderly, wrinkled hands lifted in prayer that parted cities. I saw the rejected, the addicts, the abused, the exiled, rising like lions from the shadows. And on their foreheads, glory. He called my name in the dark, and now He was calling theirs. They had no credentials, no followers, no stage lights, but the Spirit danced on their breath. When they spoke, the earth remembered Eden. They didn't build churches, they became them, carriers of presence, walking tabernacles, homes for heaven in the middle of rubble. Their worship cracked the sky. Their silence healed nations. Their forgiveness uprooted generations of hatred. I saw mothers prophesy over sleeping infants. I saw young men raise crippled fathers from dirt floors. I saw teenagers refusing the scripts of culture, choosing instead the old path, the holy path. I saw women singing in deserts, and their voices turned dust into rain. I saw orphans blessing kings. I saw prisoners opening prison doors with praise. They did not ask permission. They remembered. They remembered the name he gave them. They remembered the fire. They remembered the voice. And from that remembering, a new world began to stir. It did not rise like a revolution. It rose like resurrection. A new earth, not built by governments, not constructed by ideologies, but born from surrendered hearts. I saw forests grow from bomb craters. I saw animals return to lands abandoned by war. I saw water flow where there had only been salt. I saw laughter, deep, eternal, unearned laughter, bloom in the mouths of those who had only known mourning. The world was not ending. It was being rewritten, not with ink, but with glory. He called my name in the dark, and through me, he whispered to 1,000 others. They will lead the world into spiritual rebirth. Not the famous, not the wealthy, but the pure in heart, the hungry, the overlooked. I saw entire cities baptized in light. No preacher at the helm, only presence, only praise, only the return of wonder. I was undone, because I realized everything I had clung to, position, approval, control, was dust compared to this. And the voice, his voice, rose in me again. Return to the fire. They will lead the world into spiritual rebirth. They were chosen. You were brought here to remember. This is not a fairy tale. It is a future, and it is near. He called my name in the dark, and now I call yours. I returned, not with triumph, but with trembling. The veil folded shut behind me, but its edges burned across my soul like a brand. My eyes opened in a sterile room. Machines whispered beside me. Plastic tubes laced through my arms like restraints. The smell of antiseptic and death filled my nose. I blinked, slowly, into the artificial light of a world that had forgotten wonder. The moment I woke, I knew I was no longer made of what I had been. The world looked flatter, the colors dimmer, the walls heavier. My skin was a garment I no longer recognized. I tried to speak, but the language I knew no longer felt sufficient. The words that danced in me were weight, not syllable. And still I whispered. He called my name in the dark. The nurses leaned in. They nodded, polite. They told me I'd had a cardiac event. They said I was lucky. They said it was the sedatives talking. They said it would pass. But it didn't, because the fire had followed me back. I felt it flickering beneath my ribs. The memory of his eyes, the echo of his voice, the burden of the vision I had carried across the threshold. I tried to share it. I told the priests who visited me. I told the bishop. I told the chaplain. And they smiled. That smile. The one we're trained to wear when someone is grieving. The one that masks the heart that has already decided you're lost. They patted my hand. They spoke softly. They asked if I needed rest. But I wasn't tired. I was awake. I begged them to listen, to hear, to remember. I said his name with reverence. I described the light. I described the remnant. I told them what was coming. They nodded. And behind closed doors they wrote notes on forms. Delirium. Disorientation. Religious fixation. He called my name in the dark. And now they were trying to bury it in silence. But silence, once shattered, cannot be rebuilt. The moment I tried to tell the truth, the resistance began. The machines in my hospital room malfunctioned. My heart monitor screamed without cause. The lights flickered when I prayed. I'd wake in the middle of the night with the weight of something watching me, not a presence of light, but of shadow. They don't want this truth to spread. Not they, as in men in suits. They, as in the whisper behind deception. The voice that trembles at the memory of what I saw. The force that feeds on forgetfulness, that survives by smothering fire. I was not just fighting doubt. I was at war with a silence that had fangs. When I tried to write it down, my pen snapped. When I tried to record it, the audio distorted. When I spoke it aloud in solitude, the temperature dropped. Something in the atmosphere knew. They don't want this truth to spread, because it liberates. Because it awakens. Because it remembers. Friends I'd known for decades began to drift. Colleagues avoided my calls. Whispers circled. He's unstable. He's lost touch. He's having a breakdown. But I wasn't breaking down. I was breaking through. He called my name in the dark. And when I answered, I was handed a sword of memory. I no longer belonged to the systems I once served. I had seen too much. The pageantry no longer held weight. The titles rang hollow. The robe on my shoulders felt like a costume. I didn't hate the church, but I could no longer be its puppet. Because truth does not play well with comfort. And the truth is this: there is a war for your soul. It's quiet. It's polite. It wears robes and speaks softly. But it is a war nonetheless. Every day that I remain alive, I feel the tension between the light I carry and the shadows that want to smother it. I wake up with a tremble in my chest. Not fear, but urgency. Because I know what's coming. I've seen the rising. I've seen the cleansing. I've seen the rebirth. And I've seen what stands against it. They don't want this truth to spread, but it will. Because I made a vow. And a vow spoken in eternity does not bend beneath earthly resistance. He called my name in the dark, and I carry that name now like a flame through the ruins. If you're listening to me now, it means the fire is finding you. It means you, too, are beginning to remember. They don't want this truth to spread, but it's too late. The veil has torn, and the fire is coming. There is a war for your soul. It does not wear armor. It does not march with flags. It does not shout from mountaintops. It whispers. It hides in distraction, in delay, in comfort, in compromise. I was shown this, not as metaphor but as reality. A realm unseen, more real than the ground beneath your feet. A battle line that runs through every home, every heart, every choice. He called my name in the dark, and in that moment I saw it all laid bare. What we've mistaken for life is often a lullaby sung by the enemy, meant to keep us asleep while the eternal slips by. There is a judgment coming. Not the judgment of wrath, but the judgment of revealing. Everything hidden will be known. Everything false will collapse under its own weight. And many will not endure, not because God has abandoned them, but because they never returned to the fire. They traded presence for performance, truth for applause, conviction for convenience. But I saw them too, the ones who will endure, the ones who will carry the flame. Those whose souls were marked in secret, whose prayers never made it to pulpits, but split the sky nonetheless. They are rising. Their eyes are opening. They are remembering. And if you're still listening, it's because you are one of them. You were chosen to hear this, not because you're better, not because you're holier, but because heaven knew you would listen. You were brought here to remember, to awaken, to burn, to belong to the flame again. The time is now. Choose to walk away from the noise, from the lies, from the altar of self, from the systems that fed your ego but starved your spirit. Choose to return to the fire, not the fire of judgment, but the fire of presence, the fire that purifies, not punishes, that illuminates, not incinerates. I'm not asking you to join a movement. I'm not asking you to follow a man. I am calling you to return to the one whose voice shaped your very bones. His name is Jesus. Not the domesticated version, not the cultural mascot, the real one, the one I saw, the one who called my name in the dark. You know him. Somewhere deep down, you have always known him. He is calling you now. The time is now. Choose. Not tomorrow. Not when you're ready. No. Because the veil is thin. Because the days are trembling. Because you were not made to sleep through your own awakening. Repent. Not out of guilt, but out of longing. Return. Not to rules, but to the relationship you were born for. The time is now. Choose. I made a vow to share what I saw, to speak what I heard, to sound the trumpet even if only one soul hears it. And if that soul is yours, then this entire journey, every breath I've taken since I returned, has been worth it. You were chosen to hear this. If these words stirred something ancient inside you, if something rose from the dust when I spoke, then don't go back to sleep. Return to the fire. There are more voices returning, more testimonies rising, more souls breaking silence, and they are all gathering here. Subscribe to NDE Tales HQ, not for content, for communion, because this is not entertainment. This is awakening. This is the sound of dry bones rattling. This is the cry of the remnant. This is the beginning of the return. He called my name in the dark, and now I've called yours. The time is now. Choose. This isn't just my story. It's yours. You may not have walked through the tunnel. You may not have felt your body fall away, or stood trembling in the gaze of the one who burns without consuming. But your soul remembers. You felt it in the middle of the night, haven't you? That ache, that whisper, that strange pull behind the noise. It's not confusion. It's not delusion. It's memory. He called my name in the dark, and now I speak because he's calling yours. You were not made for the machinery of religion. You were not made for hollow rituals and polite prayers. You were made to burn. You were made to carry the breath of God in your chest, to speak words that echo past the grave, to walk as one who belongs to another world. But the fire has been buried, the hunger drowned in screens and schedules, the altar replaced with algorithm. And still, the ache remains, because once the veil lifts, once truth touches you, there is no going back. You can numb it, you can delay it, you can pretend for a while, but you can't unsee what your spirit was born for. And if you've made it here, if your soul is still here with mine, listening, then the invitation still stands. Will you rise, or will you remain asleep? The time is now, not when you feel holy, not when you've cleaned yourself up. No, because this world is shaking, and only the rooted will remain. Only those whose hearts have knelt before the King who does not flatter, whose voices have joined the ancient cry, "Holy, holy, holy." I'm not here to draw you to myself. I'm not here to impress. I am here to obey, because I made a vow in eternity, and vows spoken in the presence of fire cannot be broken without cost. He called my name in the dark, and now I am calling yours. Return to the fire. Return to the wild holiness you were born for. Return to the gospel, not the domesticated version, not the one made for applause, but the raw, tearing, soul-splitting gospel that saves. Return to Christ, not just his teachings, him, his eyes, his voice, his wounds. Leave the system. Leave the cycle that tells you to keep busy but never still. Leave the numbness, the applause, the masks. Embrace the kingdom, the invisible one, the unshakable one, the one that breathes through the broken and crowns the crushed. You've been called. You've been stirred. You've been chosen. And now, you must choose. The time is now. Choose. He called my name in the dark, and I answered, will you? If this story lit something in you, if it shook the dust from your bones, then you're not alone. There are more of us. Voices returning from the veil. Memories waking from slumber. The wind is rising again. Subscribe to NDE Tales HQ. Not for me, for you, for the gathering, for the rising. Listen to the ones who came back with fire. The ones who remembered what the world forgot. The ones who heard him whisper. He called my name in the dark, and I will never be silent again. Silence lingers. Fade to black. Subscribe to NDE Tales HQ. Hear the voices returning from the veil. The time is now.